Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. I have slower reactions than others by nature. Jackson doesn't like me, but he has to take care of me as a boyfriend because of my parents' instructions. That day he misunderstood that I had laid hands on his beloved junior sister. He locked me in a small dark room that I feared the most. He warned in a flat tone, "Michelle, even if you're a fool, you must accept the punishment for your mistakes." This incident severely shocked me, leading to amnesia. When I woke up, I fell in love at first sight with John, Jackson's brother, who had been by my bedside. Jackson was completely flustered, half kneeling in front of me, confessing, "I beg you to seriously think about it. I'm your boyfriend." I stood at the door of the teaching building, staring blankly at the intimate pair not far away. I don't know when it started, but Jackson began to pay special attention to his junior sister, Lolita. But now I can't care about these things. I ran to Jackson's side, pulling on his sleeve. Next to me, Lolita looked disdainfully at me, saying, "Jackson, your girlfriend is here again." Jackson calmly pulled back his arm. "What's up?" I pulled on him again and pointed to a German shepherd nearby without a rope. "Jackson, I'm scared." He knew I had a psychological trauma from being attacked by a large dog when I was a child. But at this moment, he still withdrew his arm. With an indifferent expression, he distanced himself from me. "Michelle, this is the school. You can't fidget around in public places." I looked at him with confusion all over my face. A thin layer of impatience crept into Jackson's eyes and brows. "Forget it, you wouldn't understand even if I explained." Jackson didn't let me hold him and continued to discuss academics with Lolita side by side. I could only follow closely behind him. The German shepherd's gaze was fixed on me all the time. I was scared, my shoulders trembling uncontrollably, sneaking glances at it from time to time, afraid it might pounce unexpectedly. As we got closer to it, it suddenly growled and rushed towards us. "Jackson." I closed my eyes subconsciously, seeking help. "Jackson." Lolita shouted at the same time. Jackson reacted the fastest and didn't hesitate to embrace me, both of us falling to the ground. A sharp pain shot through my knee. I looked down and saw a deeper wound caused by the sharp stone as we fell. On the other side, Lolita was knocked down by the German shepherd, screaming in fright. Jackson heard her cry and immediately got up, running over to drive the German shepherd away. He held her in his arms, comforting her with a tense expression. "Don't be afraid. Let me see where you're injured." Trembling, Lolita cuddled in Jackson's arms, but the skin exposed by her half-sleeve dress showed no wounds. "Jackson, I forget where it bit me, but I feel sore all over." The boy's expression turned grave. He furrowed his brow slightly and lifted her up to go to the hospital. I staggered to my feet, calling him softly, "Jackson." He interrupted me coldly, "I know you're also injured." I'm at a loss. "Isn't it painful?" He seemed to have run out of patience, his voice filled with weariness. "The school clinic is ahead. Go and take care of it yourself. Lolita may have been bitten by the dog and I have to take her for a rabies vaccine immediately. My wound was on my knee and even a slight movement would be painful. And it was still bleeding. It's hard to walk far alone." I shook my head. "But Michelle." He seemed impatient to listen to me again, interrupting me repeatedly. "If you hadn't been staring at the dog and attracted its attention, it wouldn't have pounced. Lolita wouldn't have been injured." Silenced by his words, I couldn't bring myself to ask for help. Shortly after my father passed away, my mother was about to remarry abroad. Before she sent me to the Jackson family, she repeatedly told me, "Don't cause trouble for anyone. Because you are trouble." By the time the blood at the wound had coagulated, I went to the school clinic. Unfortunately, the school doctor was not there, so I had to return home first to clean the wound myself. I was somewhat surprised to see John sitting on the sofa. He had only graduated 2 or 3 years previously. Occasionally changing out of a suit and wearing a hoodie still gave off a cool, youthful vibe. "John," I walked over to the sofa and called out obediently. When John's gaze fell on my wound, his voice turned cold. "What happened?" I was about to answer, but the sound of the door opening came again from the hallway. Jackson came in holding Lolita, raising his eyebrows in surprise when he saw John. "John, when did you come back?" John didn't answer, squinting at the two of them with a smile. "Jackson, are you openly cheating now?" The melancholy that had been swirling in my heart was magnified countless times when he stood up for me at this moment. I lowered my head, holding back the sourness creeping into my nose. Lolita, hidden in his arms, dared not speak. Instead, Jackson remained calm as ever. Lolita twisted her foot today because of Michelle. I brought her back to take care of her for a few days. Reasonable, isn't it? With that said, he passed by me with Lolita in his arms, treating me as if I were invisible. John snickered lightly, not bothering to argue with him, then turned to ask for the first aid kit. He motioned for me to sit next to him, propping up my injured leg on the sofa. I looked at the array of bottles and jars. Clutching the edge of the sofa with my hands, I softly requested, "John, I'm afraid of pain. Can you be gentler?" He raised his eyebrows lightly. "Afraid of pain?" Then his movements softened considerably when the iodine-soaked swab touched my wound. I nodded. My senses were much more acute to pain than others. John sounded a bit indifferent. "Jackson doesn't seem to treat you well lately. Do you really want to continue this way with him?" I pursed my lips and remained silent. But besides Jackson, it seemed like I didn't have any other choice. John's expression eased, lightly tugging at his lips. "Even if he causes you pain, does it not matter to you?" As he pressed. The swab on my wound was applied with slightly more force. My leg shook from the pain, and I let out a low cry. "It hurts," I said. John furrowed his brow apologetically. I bit my bottom lip, almost crying from the pain. John knelt in front of me in slight panic, cupping my calf and gently blowing on the wound. "Is it okay?" the boy asked gently, his movements even more careful. I felt some relief and nodded. "What are you two doing?" Jackson stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at us. He walked up to John and extended his hand. "John, you don't need to take care of Michelle anymore. My girlfriend, I'll take care of her myself." John gently placed my leg back on the sofa before standing up slowly. He smiled at Jackson, neither smiling nor not smiling. "So you're going to openly cheat?" The melancholy that had surrounded my heart was multiplied many times by his defense of me. At that moment, I hung my head, restraining the acidic sensations creeping up in my nostrils. I was sitting at the head of the bed, hugging my knees, unable to control my yearning for my mother at night. Holding my phone, I stared at the familiar yet unpressed number on the screen, hesitating to dial. She warned me that she was starting a new life abroad and asked me to forget about her. She raised me until I was 18 without any complaints. I didn't have the right to disturb her life anymore. Until the early hours of the morning, I kept thinking about what I had done wrong or what wasn't good about me that made one person after another abandon me. The faint sound of an argument outside the room interrupted my thoughts. I opened the door and followed the sound to the study room of my uncle. "Jackson, how can you bring a stranger home? How does that make Michelle feel?" There was unmistakable anger in my uncle's restrained words. "How could you treat Michelle like this? Have you no conscience?" "Just stop it." Jackson interrupted coldly. "You always bring up her dad helping our family. Is this kind of moral blackmail fun? I just can't stand her. Is it wrong to want to date a normal girl? Why don't you let my brother marry her?" The next second, a loud slap resounded in the room. I didn't really pay attention to what they were saying after that. I just walked back to my room in a daze. I finally understood that I wasn't good enough, not likable enough. I touched my head and sighed in frustration. I almost forgot I'm a fool. Even though my father always comforted me, saying that my brain just reacts slower than others and that I need more time to think things through at this moment, I had to admit it. I was seen as a misfit in everyone's eyes. The next morning, seeing Jackson carrying Lolita to the dining table and gently placing her down, I started considering the idea of leaving for the first time. When I looked away, I unexpectedly met eyes with the main figure, John. He smirked and pursed his lips, then glanced away, no longer paying attention to me. Lolita was beaming with smiles. "Dumb sis, you're so lucky. Staying at Jackson's place, not having to do any." John tapped the table with his fingers, looking at Lolita provocatively. "What did you call her?" Lolita innocently blinked and replied, "She's the same age as me, so it's right to call her sis, right, big brother?" John looked her up and down with a not-so-polite gaze. "Who's your brother?" He seemed genuinely puzzled. Lolita blushed and stammered, unable to speak. Jackson, not tolerating it, intervened. "John, stop harassing Lolita." "Shut up." John looked at him coldly, maintaining a polite smile. "Do I need your permission to speak here?" John, the heir apparent, possessed far superior business acumen than Jackson, which destined him to have absolute decision-making power in the house. Although Jackson's face turned pale with anger, he didn't say a word. John still appeared polite and courteous but somehow gave off a pressuring vibe. He smiled gently at Lolita. "Aren't you going to apologize?" The girl bit her lip and turned towards me, apologizing repeatedly. "I didn't know you didn't like that nickname." "Sorry, Michelle, I didn't mean to insult you. I've always thought it was a term of endearment meaning you are cute." I stared at the fried egg on my plate. frustratedly poking at it with my fork, muttering to myself, if you like it so much, why don't you change your name on your ID to Dumb? John chuckled softly, looking into my eyes. He softened once again. John had been with the company for less than 2 years and often went on business trips. That day, when I saw him change into a shirt and pants, I knew he was off to work. Ignoring Jackson's warning, he calmly administered my medication, whispering, call me if anything comes up. Pausing for a moment with the cotton swab, he pressed it down again. You can call me even if there's nothing. Thank you, John, I replied, resting my hands on the couch, leaning back slightly. Instead of getting up immediately after giving me the medication, John leaned over towards me, locking his gaze onto mine. What if you're being bullied? What should you do? My mom always told me to be a bit cowardly, to endure if I can. But my intuition told me that this wasn't the answer John wanted to hear. After much thought, I tilted my head to meet his gaze and hesitantly uttered 2 words, report it. John chuckled softly and nodded. That works too. But the most direct way is to fight back. Nobody has the right to make you feel miserable. John was away on a business trip for a week, and I held on to these words for the entirety of his absence. As he was about to return, Lolita unexpectedly approached me. She stopped me in the staircase, wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and questioned me. What will it take for you to break up with Jackson? Please spare him, okay? Instinctually, I tried to bypass her and pretend I didn't hear, retreating back to my room. But remembering John's words, I froze in my steps. I retorted seriously, 1 word at a time, it seems like it has nothing to do with you. Lolita patiently shook her head. It does, because I want to be with Jackson. I stared at her. You should go tell Jackson. Although after a week of struggles I had planned to end this relationship that was only a name, Lolita suddenly glanced behind me and smiled insincerely. Do you believe that I can make Jackson dump you in the stupidest way? With that, she harshly pinched my arm. Her nails almost digging into my flesh, I winced in pain, attempting to pull my arm back, but Lolita's grip was strong and I couldn't move. In a panic, I subconsciously pushed her away. It wasn't forceful, but she immediately fell down the stairs. Lolita! Jackson's voice echoed from behind me. He hurriedly ran to Lolita's side, checked on her, and had the driver carry her to the hospital. In the vast mansion, only Jackson and I were left. He approached me with an expressionless face, but I felt a chill running down my spine, backing away involuntarily. Jackson, it was not intentional. I tried to explain in panic. He cornered me against the wall, his dark eyes seemingly bottomless. Michelle, I'll ask you once. Did you push her? I tried to explain frantically, no, it wasn't. It was because. Did you or did you not push her? He suddenly raised his voice, making me turn pale instantly. As I looked at the menacing young man in front of me, I subconsciously reached for my phone to call for help. I need to call John. Enraged, Jackson snatched my phone and fiercely smashed it against the floor. He pressed my shoulders against the wall, not letting me move. John? He chuckled coldly. When did you become so intimate with him? Michelle, just remember I'm your boyfriend. Shaking my head slightly, I spoke softly, you're not anymore. Jackson, let me go. I tried to push his shoulder, protesting softly. I dislike you. I don't want you anymore. He laughed lightly as if he heard a ridiculous joke. Oh, is that so? He smiled faintly. Even if you don't want to. He dragged me to the storage room at the far end of the 2nd floor. Michelle, even if you're a fool, you have to accept the consequences of your actions. I looked at the room with no windows, resembling a prison cell, fear creeping over me. Don't lock me in there, Jackson, please. I struggled from incoherent explanations to desperate pleas. It was her intention to make me push her. Jackson, no. I'm scared of the dark. I don't want to go in there. Ignoring my cries, he locked me in the storage room. I have to go to the hospital now to take care of Lolita. I hope that when I come back, you would have reflected on your actions. Admit your mistake voluntarily and apologize to Lolita. The room was extremely sealed with no light coming in. I even wondered if there would be enough oxygen, suffocating and dying in there. Initially, I tried to knock on the door for help. Then I collapsed into tears, screaming at the top of my lungs. Until finally, I sat on the ground by the door, numb, devoid of all emotions. When I hazily opened my eyes, the first person I saw was a man in a slightly disheveled shirt but with extraordinary features. So extraordinary that I found myself liking him at first sight. He called me Michelle. Who are you? My subconscious told me not to be on guard against this stranger. Why can't I remember anything? He paused for an almost imperceptible second and helped me sit up against the headboard. Looking at me with gentle, tender eyes, he finally spoke. I'm John. He brushed my hair behind my ear, introducing himself calmly. Also your fiancé. He was my fiancé. It felt like discovering a hidden treasure in a blind box. My eyes lit up with joy. Just as I was about to speak, the bedroom door was suddenly burst open. A disheveled young man rushed in. Michelle. I was wrong. He looked at me flustered. Pointing at him, I asked John, who is he? The man smiled softly, planting a gentle kiss on my forehead. My brother, Jackson. He's simply an inconsequential person to you. Jackson looked at John in disbelief. John, have you gone mad? He glanced at me, his expression dark and focused for a long time. I was utterly perplexed by the complex expression he wore at that moment. Seeing my puzzled look, he suddenly burst into laughter. So it's like this. You really don't understand anything, do you? He fixed his gaze on John. Of course. If you're willing to take over, that would be perfect. But are you sure you can endure forever being the one playing second fiddle? As they exchanged words, Jackson was left stuck in his tracks by John's statement. Jackson's gaze fell on my face, staring at me intently with a darkened expression. Seeing the mixed emotions he displayed at that moment, he suddenly smiled. So that's how it is. A clueless expression as if I didn't understand anything. He gazed steadily at John. Sure. If you want to take charge, that's even better. But I hope you can still be this defiant in some time. In the evening, when the doctor came to check on me, he left with a cryptic statement. Michelle seems to have stimulated her nervous system due to this incident and perhaps might become a normal individual. John looked indifferent and did not agree with him. She was just a normal person. I began to doubt if I had been abnormal before or foolish. And this speculation was confirmed that night when Jackson brought a girl named Lolita home. She saw me and immediately let out a frightened cry. Like she had seen some ferocious beast, she rushed into Jackson's arms. Miss Tao. I was wrong. I didn't know you disliked me so much and didn't want me to stay here. I'll leave now. Please don't push me again. She reached out to push Jackson's chest. Put me down, Jackson. I want to go back to my own home, she said, tears welling up in the corners of her eyes, looking hurt and vulnerable. Jackson's cold gaze fixed on me. Michelle apologized to Lolita. Just as John, sitting next to me, was about to speak, I jumped in first. Evidence. In an instant, everyone looked at me. The air seemed to freeze, abnormally quiet. I was still munching on chips, tilting my head to look at Lolita. You say I pushed you? Do you have any evidence? I don't remember anything. I can't just believe whatever you say, right? If someone tells me tomorrow that I have killed someone, do I have to jump off a building to atone for it? John was the quickest to react, propping his temple with interest, looking at me. After a moment of contemplation, I offered him a chip. If you want to eat, you can just take it. Staring at me like that is a bit embarrassing, I added hesitantly, if you're my boyfriend, you don't need to be polite with me. He chuckled softly and nodded in agreement. Lolita's face went blank for several seconds before stiffly responding. It was an emergency at the time. I didn't have time to record anything. I interrupted her, well, that's too bad. Empty talk like this won't make me agree. Ignoring the confrontation in front of me, I continued to share snacks with John. In the middle of the night, a sudden storm caused a power outage in the villa. The pitch-black room made me suddenly feel uneasy. Without even putting on shoes, I hurried to the door of John's room. The knocking not only woke up John but also Jackson in the next room. I felt awkward, nervously fidgeting my hands behind my nightdress. John, I'm a bit afraid of the dark. Can I sleep with you tonight? No, was Jackson's immediate response. He furrowed his brow. Could you show a bit more self-respect? I found my little brother-in-law really annoying. I questioned him expressionlessly, are you jealous? Before I could hear what he was about to say, John pulled me into the room. The door slammed shut behind us. Why waste so many words? Flakes of black hair fell across his forehead, temporarily concealing his typically distant demeanor. He still looked like an ordinary college student. Suddenly, a thunderous roar of thunder and lightning erupted outside. I shivered, grasping the corner of his sleepwear. So can I sleep with you? He lightly squeezed my hand, pulling me towards the bed. Turning back to give me a casual glance, he said, sleep with your boyfriend. Why ask so many questions? His words seemed ambiguous to me. Not long after lying down, abnormal sounds emanated from Jackson's room next door. It was rhythmic with strong beats. Jackson, slower, slower. Jackson made no effort to muffle the sounds. Louder, baby. Let every step be heard loud and clear. I thought John would be as uncomfortable as I was, but when I shifted my gaze to his face, I surprisingly saw a smile playing at the corners of his lips. As our attention was diverted, I asked the question that had been weighing on my mind. Why do you look so relieved and entertained? John's tone was unusually relaxed. Because he won't have a chance anymore. His cryptic statement left me bewildered. Before I could ponder further, the commotion next door grew louder. In the quiet darkness of the night, I felt John's breath deepen. At that moment, his dark, glossy eyes looked predatory. Cowering under the covers, I felt somewhat tense. What do you want? Before I could utter the two words, he cut me off. Want? With that, he pulled me into his arms. Only then did I notice John's agile and slender hands, seeming perfect for playing the piano. Delicate kisses landed on my earlobe, eliciting an involuntary gasp from me. The smirk on his face did not waver. So you want to? I hugged his neck, silently affirming. But there were no further actions. What's wrong? My breath was unsteady. He closed his eyes, his voice husky. Nothing. Finally, the sounds from the next room ceased. My ears burned with embarrassment, but I mustered up the courage to suggest, can you go next door and borrow a sheet? John looked down at me, a teasing smile tugging at his lips. One sheet won't be enough. With that, he got up to put on a robe and washed his hands before knocking on the neighboring room. Cuddled under the covers, I listened through the slightly ajar door to their conversation. I heard Jackson's cold voice. Why is it you? John seemed in a good mood and didn't confront him. Simply said, my sister-in-law asked me to borrow something. Jackson sneered, I don't know you from a hole in the wall. Haven't I made it clear enough? The whole exchange left me rolling my eyes. John was very indulgent towards his younger brother, never really confronting him. Gentle, he said. My girlfriend asked me to borrow something. Speak up, pumpkin. Pause. 3 sheets for starters. A few seconds later, Jackson cursed under his breath, then said sharply, stop pretending. John, do I not know you? Before the dust settles, you don't dare. With that, he slammed the door with a resounding thud. John returned empty-handed, but he wasn't fazed by Jackson's words, his smile unwavering. Back in bed, he simply held me in his arms, not making any advances, looking rather relaxed. Casually stroking the back of my head, he decided not to borrow and said, I'll buy one tomorrow. After saying that, he closed his eyes to sleep. I lifted my head from his embrace, feeling unsure. John, don't be so selfish. He looked at me, eyes drooping. I don't know what to say, he said, watching me with a soft gaze. Eventually, he pulled me close, teasingly asking, are you that eager? I blushed from ear to ear. Can you not say that? John's lips curved into an indulgent smile. Then should I cover my mouth? Without waiting for my response, he took action. I wrapped myself tightly in the blanket, feeling a bit flustered, and urged him to go brush his teeth. The chaotic night left me too befuddled to process. John and I had not yet kissed. But my resolve didn't last long because John was truly the most pitiful CEO I had ever seen. He worked tirelessly, even to the point of exhaustion, just to spend a few more hours with me. He rushed back through storm and rain when I expressed fear of the dark, intending to rest briefly at the office. And all the while he had to endure further pressure from Jackson, who was taking advantage of him. Before John finished work, I proactively knocked on Jackson's door for the first time. He seemed taken aback by my presence. Peering past the crack in the door, I caught a glimpse of a teary-eyed Lolita and awkwardly smiled. Sorry to bother you. I'll come back when you have time. I have time, Jackson quickly. He opened the door and told Lolita softly to leave first since her ankle wasn't completely healed yet, but only watched coldly as she left unsteadily. Jackson seemed a bit flustered, stuttering, Do you want to eat something or drink something? Can I buy it for you? Just come in and wait for me. Feeling emotionally down, I tried to do something nice for him as I witnessed how tired and busy he was lately. Jackson's gaze turned serious. Is that what you're really asking? I nodded, and after a moment of silence, without a word, he forcefully slammed the door shut, leaving me outside. I don't know. Don't bother me if it's nothing. He seemed to have a short temper indeed. I kicked his door and turned away in frustration. Jackson's anger lingered through the night. At the dinner table at 7 p.m., John's eyes seemed faintly weary. I rested my chin on my hand, feeling an indescribable ache for him. Meanwhile, Jackson scoffed disdainfully. Bro, if you're so tired, why not hand over the company to me? John massaged his temples and raised his eyes slowly. Jackson leaned back in his chair, hinting, I regret it. Either give me back what should have been mine or give me 2/3 of the shares. With a portion of the shares already in his hands, adding John's 2/3 would make him the largest shareholder. His intentions were crystal clear. After speaking, Lolita, by his side, glanced at me nervously. She asked, "Then what am I?" Jackson chuckled and casually toyed with his food. "Did I ever admit you were my girlfriend? Can't I give you money if you need it? Don't make such a fuss." I held the chopsticks, pretending to sneak a glance at the two of them. I thought Lolita would explode on the spot, getting ready to witness a live scene drama during dinner. But she just hung her head on the verge of tears dropping into the plate without saying another word. Jackson once again directed his anger towards John. "What do you say, John? I know you won't give up your inheritance rights, so just give back what should rightfully be mine. I just want it." He was getting impatient to the point of calling him by name. Although I didn't know what puzzle he was playing at, I was quite angry. I angrily poked the plate in front of me with the chopsticks, then turned to look at John. There was no effort to keep the volume down. "Hey, is your little brother's brain not fully developed? Or is his brain completely underdeveloped? How else can he beg so shamelessly?" John pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Jackson suddenly exploded, kicked the chair aside, and stood up, smashing all the tableware in front of him to the floor. "You remember nothing and yet won't shut up." He stared at me with red eyes, a mix of anger and a hint of hurt in his rage. "Michelle, don't be too biased. Do you only know how good he was to you after you lost your memory? Let me be clear, before you lost your memory." John suddenly interrupted Jackson's words. I turned my head and saw a prominent wound on his forearm, long and deep, blood oozing. Continuously, I quickly bent down to hold his arm, asking anxiously, "How did this happen? Let me take you back to the room to deal with it." John let me pull him up without any urgency and calmly said, "When Jackson smashed the bowl earlier, a glass shard splintered and cut me." Jackson couldn't believe it. "John, what the hell are you talking about?" Unable to bear it, I picked up a chopstick and threw it at him. "What craziness are you spouting? Could it be that he injured himself?" John glanced emotionlessly at the wound, seemingly not feeling any pain. Meanwhile, Jackson's black eyes harbored a storm, glaring at me. But ultimately, he didn't say anything else. Inside the room, as I was bandaging John's wound, he suddenly started crying silently. "What's wrong?" He raised my chin with one hand. I shook my head, cutting the gauze. John gently wiped the moisture at the corners of my eyes, then leaned in for a kiss. "Why are you crying?" I kept my head down, speaking with a nasal tone. "Jackson always bullies you. Let's move out, okay?" John's lips slightly curved. "Okay," I continued to advise him, "don't pamper him too much. You don't know him anything." His action of kissing me stopped abruptly, seemingly struck by some thought. There was an emotion in his eyes that I couldn't comprehend. I did feel a bit guilty towards Jackson. I was puzzled, but John carelessly changed the subject to stop me from asking further. "What about showering tonight?" I hesitated and didn't immediately respond. John nodded. "It's okay, I can have Jackson help me." Saying that, he got up to walk towards the door. I blocked him with my hands, looking up at him seriously. "He might hurt you." I took a deep breath and firmly said, "I'll help you." John looked at me apologetically, saying sorry for the trouble. The bathtub in the bathroom was filled with water, and a mist of steam surrounded the enclosure. The air was humid and hot. I placed my hand on John's tie, and under his increasingly heated gaze, clumsily struggled to untie it. With one hand propped on the marble counter behind me, John leaned over and kissed my earlobe. "Hurry up, Michelle." I felt trapped within his narrow circle, staring at the buttons on his shirt, trembling. "I'll go get Jackson to help you now. Is that okay?" His low chuckle in his throat was particularly enticing. Too late, I'm starting to doubt if I'm in a sauna. John took advantage of the situation, luring me step by step into his trap. The thin air made me a bit dizzy. By the time I realized it, he had already carried me into the bathtub. All the discomfort and embarrassment vanished completely as I saw the blood-soaked bandage on his arm. I pushed his shoulders urgently, urging him to get out of the bathtub. "John, you need to get out." He raised an eyebrow leisurely. Feeling both angry and embarrassed, I was about to speak when, taking advantage of the moment, he unexpectedly kissed me. Coaxing, he said, "Give me some response, Michelle." Fooled by the pleading in his eyes, I softened my heart. Eventually, I closed my eyes, wrapping my arms around him. Early the next morning, I began contacting the moving company. At noon, Jackson saw the large truck outside the door. His expression darkened as he questioned me, "Are you guys moving out?" I nonchalantly nodded, looking past him to find John in the room. Jackson's gaze suddenly turned sharp, grabbing my arm. He forcefully pulled me in front of him, his eyes falling on the red mark on my collarbone. "Did you sleep with him?" It's none of your business, let me go. Jackson's aura was so overwhelming it was terrifying. His grip on my wrist was so strong it felt like he could crush it. None of my business? He mechanically tugged at his lips. I am your boyfriend, Michelle. I widened my eyes in disbelief. Almost at the same time, the bedroom door behind me swung open. There was no sound, but I knew John was standing there. Jackson's gaze shifted from me to behind me, his eyes full of provocative dominance. He laid everything out for me, but the person he described himself as being was very different from the one who liked me, sacrificed for me, and was resentful of not having me by his side. It took me a long time to process it all. After a while, I easily broke free from Jackson's grip, walking over to John. Silently, I locked eyes with him. Jackson sneered, so he deceived you, took my place, and shamelessly touched you. John remained calm, showing no emotional fluctuations from Jackson's words. Grabbing his cold hand, I realized the tension concealed under his composed exterior. John, can you tell me about the time before I lost my memory? He looked at me for a while before speaking. I did deceive you. I nodded. And then I asked, how did we get along before I lost my memory? And how did you see the way Jackson and I interacted? Finally, a layer of vulnerable emotion surfaced in his eyes. He slowly recounted another perspective of me. John concluded, I don't regret deceiving you the moment you woke up. If given the chance, I would make the same choice again. Jackson snorted behind us. Holding John's hand firmly, I squinted and smiled. If given another chance, let's not go back to when I lost my memory. Let's go back to the day when I was brought home and you were the first to hold my hand before Jackson. It would save us from a lot of detours. John embraced me, and I pretended not to notice his reddened eyes, probably concealing his emotions. That day, Jackson couldn't let it go, asking me why I ultimately chose John. I pondered for a moment, answering succinctly, because he likes me. He's very good to me. I had heard my aunt's admiration before. John has always been consistent with you. Now I understood what she meant. There was no change due to my foolishness or normalcy. He likes me. He always liked me. Nonetheless, Jackson's voice was rough. And I like you too, Michelle. I didn't like you before, or I wouldn't have allowed you to stay by my side for so long. I just didn't realize it sooner. That's not true. He had always been unwilling. He was unwilling back then to be stuck with someone he found dull for life. Now he was unwilling to let me go after I regained my sanity and didn't want him anymore. I didn't have time to reason with him. I just stared at him expressionlessly, saying, but you weren't good to me. How else would I end up locked in a storage room, losing my sanity? Jackson pursed his lips but remained silent, letting me and John leave without a word. My memories were gradually coming back to me. I remembered the chaotic scene at John's house in the middle of the night. Lolita was pregnant with Jackson's child. It was the night when John and I were forced to listen to them being intimate. It turned out that Jackson didn't refuse John on purpose. He just didn't have it. When Lolita found out about her pregnancy, she waited until the 4th month before showing up. The month was too advanced for an abortion. She had everything carefully planned. When John and I rushed over, Lolita even poured dirty water on me. If it weren't for you pushing me, I wouldn't have stayed at their house for so long, nor would I have been entangled with Jackson, John coldly sneered, asking the bodyguards outside to escort her out. I stopped him, then nodded in agreement. I remember now indeed, I pushed you. Everyone turned to look at me. Slowly, I revealed how Lolita had scratched me with her nails. Lolita couldn't hide her panic. The truth was evident. Jackson laughed at himself, saying to Lolita, so it's all because of you that led to our separation. Initially, when Uncle suggested that I should take responsibility for Lolita, he passively accepted. But now, not only would Jackson refuse to marry her, but he would also force her to have an abortion. Another endless argument ensued. I pulled John out of the murky atmosphere. He asked, have you remembered everything? I nodded, then stood on tiptoe, hugging his neck and kissed his cheek. Thank goodness I remembered. While John held onto my waist, I rubbed his nose at this height. Because actually at that time I was planning to break up with Jackson. I'm not sure if I had started to like you at that time, but every night you were away on a business trip, I missed you a lot, really missed you, John. He pursed his lips and leaned in to plant a kiss on the corner of my mouth. Me too. There was a stretch of road on the way home without streetlights. Coupled with the overcast sky tonight, it was pitch black. I realized suddenly that I wasn't as afraid of the dark as I used to be. I held John's hand and idly asked him, which version of me do you prefer, the slow-reacting me or the present me? Just when I thought he would say he liked both versions, he chose the latter. Why? I stopped in my tracks and turned back to question him. John calmly looked back at me. I will still have a lot of business trips in the future and cannot guarantee being there for you all the time. Moreover, I am 5 years older than you and statistically will probably pass away before you, Michelle. There was a sense of the future in his words. The present you is strong and won't allow yourself to be bullied anymore. Even if someday you stop liking me, I can let you go with peace of mind. I focused on the key point and asked in dissatisfaction, why wouldn't it be you not liking me and then abandoning me? Because I will definitely always like you. How fortunate I stood in front of him, seeing nothing but each other in our eyes. There was only the two of us, no one else in sight. In this moment, you were all around me. I echoed his commitment, me too. I will absolutely always like you too.